Welcome back to another episode of the Pandemic Job Hunt. This podcast aims to break down key techniques and to uncover the industry secrets to help you stand out in getting a job during this once-in-a-lifetime pandemic we are living in. And I am your host, Andrew Barry. I am excited to showcase my next guest today. His name is Rohan Seth. He's a good friend of mine, and we've known each other for almost a decade by now. He's an individual who lives by his own set of noble core principles, and I truly admire that about him. We had a fantastic conversation, and in this episode, we break down his philosophy in approaching the job hunt, networking tactics, and ideas on how to stand out amongst the other applicants. Stay tuned. Hey, Rohan.
Hey, Barry.
How you been?
I've been good.
It's been a while.
It has not.
Well, it has been a while in my books.
Okay.
Yeah. So I usually start with asking my guests, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Is this a job interview?
No.
Okay.
Just tell me a little bit about yourself in terms of what you believe in.
That's...
What have you been up to lately?
All right. So... recently I have been up to, mostly moving, trying to figure all that out. And work-wise, working at a hotel company, Lifehouse Hotels, and kind of just trying to figure out revenue and marketing stuff.
So when did you start working at Lifehouse Hotels?
Almost 2 years ago.
Oh, congratulations, 2 years
anniversary? It hasn't been 2 years yet, but almost, yeah.
So how did you find yourself landing in the position of working for Lifehouse?
So this was a friend of mine who I used to work with at Sonder, moved to Lifehouse while I was at Capital One. And he was doing a similar role that he did at Sonder for Lifehouse. So he just messaged me saying, hey, by the way, I moved to this new company, very similar to Sonder in the size that they're at. Would you be interested in having a conversation? So we had that conversation, and at that time, I was ready for a change from Capital One. So we started talking more.
So it's kind of like a chance happening, and then your friend reached out to you, and like the perfect time for you to make a change.
Yeah, we didn't do it immediately, but we started the conversation. We kind of kept it in the back pocket. Then when I was ready to fully make the change, we kind of agreed upon a consulting contract, and that turned into something more. So not as... Okay,
well, what was the driving factor you think was the key movement for you to actually make a change from Capital One to Lifehouse?
Mostly just wanting a more fast-paced environment, something where you can have more of an impact than you can in a larger corporation, and a place that kind of just less hurdles to get some stuff done. That was the bulk of it. I love the people at Capital One.
And how long were you at Capital One for?
1 year.
Okay. Because I know before Capital One, you were working at Sonder for some time. And so you had that startup experience, then you went straight to the corporate experience, then went back to the startup experience. Could you tell me a little about the experience between the two, and what made you choose to go back into a more smaller... I know you said, obviously, you can think you have a better impact on your work, but what were the other reasons you would say when you transitioned to Lifehouse?
So when I was working at Sonder, that was my first job. So that was just me getting a taste of what working in a job is like. And I loved it, learned a lot, people were great, and it was one of the most fulfilling career experiences for me. And after that, Sonder moved to San Fran. So I was trying to look for what else I can be doing, and I was pretty burnt out after Sonder. Yeah.
Really?
So I thought, okay, a more corporate kind of structured role maybe is not the worst thing for me. And it was perfect for the moment, Capital One, and that's why there's pros and cons of each, I find. In that moment, it was perfect for me to be there, kind of get my life back together, move to Toronto and make that move fulfilling and fun, meet new people, and get all of that sorted. And when I felt like my life was back in a good place, what I missed was the excitement, the uncertainty, the fast-paced nature of being in a small company.
Okay.
So that prompted me to make the shift again back to startup life.
Did you happen when you moved to Toronto, like kept your eye out in terms of like various job postings or different, say, startup companies that's happening in Toronto that you thought like, okay, maybe down the line, I really want to network and like get my way into the startup community in Toronto again? Or
yeah, so not immediately when I came, because I was still trying to get my life together, but like 9 months in or so into the Capital One stint, I started looking. So the usual, going to startup open house, kind of like checking angel list, seeing the companies there, trying to figure out what is my unique selling point to these companies, and just kind of starting the process. And some of them went somewhere, some of them didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
A lot of it I find when you're dealing with such a small pool of companies, let's say startups in Toronto, that could potentially need BI help. A lot of it is about timing. So if you're trying to make a quick switch, it's not always possible because not everyone is hiring for business intelligence, which was what I was applying for or trying to get into.
So you were not in business intelligence in Capital One?
I basically was.
Okay.
Similar type. That was my skill set. If I had to.
So also in Sonder, you say you're BI as well. Okay.
So that was my. If I had to put down what value I can add on paper, it would be business intelligence.
Okay.
So when I reached out to these companies saying, hey, this is what I do, I'd love to learn more. Usually it went to the learn more stage, but only like 1 or 2 of them was hiring for BI and didn't get those jobs.
Okay, so let's rewind. So you said you reached out to these companies to like, pitch your skill set and like kind of learn more about like what they do and like, have this conversation started. How did you do that? Like, who did you reach out and like what were your main strategies in like actually landing those conversations?
So my go-to strategy for these kind of situations is starting on LinkedIn. So first I start with kind of like a list of companies that I'd be interested in. Since I kind of narrowed my focus down to startups in Toronto, the list was maybe like 30, 40 companies. There wasn't infinite. It wasn't huge. Then I look at, in each one of these companies, do I have any existing contact, which mostly was no, because I was more east of the Montreal startup community. Then I look at, is there anyone that I'm really close to who has an existing contact at these companies? If so, reach out through them. And I did that for a few companies, people that I used to know at Sonder, worked at some of these companies, or they had friends who worked at some of these companies. So try and look at that second degree connection kind of thing. Otherwise, I just try and find the most relevant senior person in what I'm applying for.
So you went straight for the senior guys.
I go for like not the CEO.
Yes.
Depends on the size of the company. So let's say it's Wealthsimple.
Yeah.
I think something that everyone knows. I would go for like director of product or director of business intelligence.
Okay.
Kind of like director level for the lane that I'm applying for.
So director level, so did you avoid, say, like recruiters or HR folks?
Always avoid them,
okay,
is my thinking.
Interesting.
They get bombarded with inbound, and they just like get so many things, headhunters, all of this and that, and I don't think are the best suited to make the decision on who would be a value add to the company, in my opinion.
So what kind of message would you, say to these senior folks in these companies for them to really look at your message and be like, hey, this guy's an interesting guy to talk to? Like, did you start with asking a question? What was your strategy for that?
My strategy has always been, don't go in looking like you're looking for a job.
Okay.
Don't give them the impression that you're looking for a job. So my thesis on this is people love talking about themselves. So the first few conversations is just, can I learn more about your journey?
Okay.
I looked at your journey. It inspired me. It really resonated. I want to be you, but in like 10 years. So can you give me like 30 minutes of your time to let me know how you did it?
Okay.
And people are usually pretty receptive to that. I would say like 50-60% reply, and they're like, hey, let's get on the phone and we'll have a conversation, or let's grab a coffee. We'll have a conversation. And then in that conversation, you could hint that you're looking around, but if you sound desperate, I feel like it kind of gives them the flags of like, okay, this guy's just talking to me because he needs a job.
Got you.
So I just try and have those conversations, and always after the conversation, I follow up with, since I listen to a lot of podcasts, usually like, hey, based on our conversation, I think these podcasts would be something that you'd enjoy, or these articles, and kind of keep that relationship going. And then, let's say in X number of months, be like, hey, I came across this job post. What are your thoughts on it? Is there anyone at the company who'd be a good person for me to talk to learn more about that job post?
So you had a very long-term, long play for like each of these people in different companies.
Yeah.
Not looking for, an actual guaranteed job, just have the conversation open so they can think about you down the line, or they'll respond to you when you actually do want to look for a job.
I think it's the latter. So it's just like, I don't think they'll ever be thinking about me because it's very hard for people to remember.
Yeah.
But I know that if I ever do apply, that I can reach out to them.
Ask for a referral.
Kind of a referral to be like, hey, I saw this. This is super interesting. Is there anyone that you know that I could talk to? And then if I apply, they know my name. Then you send them like, hey, by the way, I applied. They'll be like, it'll go to HR, but they'll go to HR and be like, I kind of know that kid.
Okay.
That kind of vibe.
Okay. So that's definitely a long play. But you're also, I guess, you're really focused on the networking aspect of just building and growing your network, regardless of if there's an opportunity or not. Just putting yourself out there and just making the right connections is what your strategy, you're putting into your network.
Yeah. I think, again, my philosophy there has been, would this conversation or connection be useful even if I wasn't looking for a job? And if the answer is no, then it's probably not the conversation to be having. Okay. In my opinion.
So now that you're in a job right now and you have a few years of experience under your belt, have there been anybody who actually reached out to you looking for a job, or done what you did, say like 2-3 years ago, when you reached out to other people?
Yeah, often. It happens pretty often. Similar strategy. And now as I got into more the recruiting piece of it, so what I noticed is you put out a job description because you're like, hey, need an analyst on this team. Yeah. You put out a job description, you put it on like all these job boards, and it's just one software that puts it on all the job boards for you. Okay. You get hundreds and hundreds of applicants a week. Yeah. The first like 10 you get, you start looking at them because you're excited because you just put out a new job and you're getting applicants. After that, you're like, this is overwhelming. I'm sure. And especially if you're not an HR person and you have other stuff to do.
Especially like right now during this pandemic, like people are like, I see like job posts on LinkedIn is like 500 to 1,000 posts. I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
And for each one of those, you're probably getting like 1,000 to 2,000 applicants
from other, sources as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Not just LinkedIn applications. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So, it's overwhelming, and slowly, actually very quickly for me, I got to the point I'm not reading any resumes that come. Okay. Because there's no way to effectively screen that very quickly. I'm not reading any of them. So there's probably like, for this analyst position, probably like 1,000 people who applied, maybe like 700, 800. And after the first 10, I stopped reading the resumes. Okay. And so the only people I actually had conversations with were people who reached out in other ways. Really? So anyone who messages me on LinkedIn, I'd say like 90% of the time, unless it slips out of my mind, have a conversation.
You actually reply to them.
Reply. Okay. Because they'll always say, can I take 15 minutes of your time to learn more? Okay. Something like that. So always generally try and reply. And we have a conversation. And after you have a conversation, you're more invested in that person than just a resume.
So say that job you just put out for an analyst position, you get 1,000 of applications. How many people actually take the time to connect with you on LinkedIn and try to actually make a connection and have a conversation?
I would say for this job, 5 people did that.
Only 5 people versus like thousands of people. Yeah. That is crazy. And I guess with 5 people, it's very easy for you to just have a conversation with each one. And when it comes to people reaching out to you, what do you like to see in their message, their initial message, in terms of like, oh, this person is interesting? Like, do you look for, oh, are they asking a question? Are they, maybe more direct, or versus like someone who's actually, like you said, you're asking for your story?
Mm-hmm. I think what I look for is if it's super salesy in that I'm looking for a job, can we talk kind of thing, it's a bit more of a turnoff. Just because I think there's more thoughtful ways to show that apart from just seeing the job posting, you did a little bit more. The best ones I find are, I saw the job posting, checked out your website, this is where I'm super interested to learn more, and this is why travel and hospitality is something that, I'm interested in. I'd just love to hear your experience on that and talk about it.
Okay.
If they are saying, hey, I saw the job posting and that's why I'm kind of inquiring, I just find it's great when they provide some sort of evidence that they've done their research or have thought about how does this job really intersect with what they want to do in their career and where they can add value, etc.
Okay, so they say, like, they do some research of, like, for example, Lifehouse, leverage what their experience is in terms of relation to, like, the job posting, then showcase, like, how they will add value into the company.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I find sometimes it's hard to do that in a LinkedIn message, obviously. You don't want it to be super long. So I find what's really, really at least impresses me is we have the 15-minute conversation. Usually they'll be like, hey, I'd love to learn more about Lifehouse. I give them the spiel about Lifehouse. Love to learn more about your journey. I give them that thing. I ask them, tell me about what you're looking at. They give me their spiel. And after we're done with the conversation, if they send me, like, sometimes people ask, can I just get your email to stay in contact? Always, take my email. If they send a very thoughtful and interesting email after, being like, sometimes I've seen people actually say, hey, in the conversation, they may ask, like, what are your pain points these days? They do some research on that and give me a little write-up.
Okay.
I think that, because
that's like a lot of effort to look for a job in general.
But your conversion rate on these is much higher than writing a cover letter.
So definitely there is, like, two strategies, like, very, like, high investment in, like, high quality job applications versus, like, shoot it all, low quality, just see what sticks.
Yeah.
Definitely two strategies here.
Yeah, but I just think the second one, from my very, very limited sample size of experience on both sides of it, I've seen the returns to be much, much higher. Very limited sample size, though. And only for startups.
Only for startups.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what if this is true still for, say, large corporations. Like, if you were back in Capital One, would someone reach out to, like, the director of X?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure.
But for startups, you would say this is a very successful strategy that's been proven.
With anecdotal evidence.
Well, obviously with anecdotal evidence. I mean, what do you hear amongst your peers?
Same thing.
In terms of, like, this strategy in specifically.
So with Lifehouse, I think if I had to guess, over 90% of our hires are something like this.
Okay.
/ friend of a friend of a friend.
Okay.
Referral / reached out personally.
These are high quality applicants.
High investment, high
quality applicants. So when you look at these applicants and they reached out to you, then you start with the interview process, whatnot. What kind of experiences are you looking for in them? Like, what are the key, signals you look for in like an applicant?
Well, it's probably different for every job position.
For sure.
Seniority level, all sorts of things are different. I think without making it too focused on analytics or BI, I think showing that you're a self-starter. Well, again, this is just my experience and what we look for here. Showing that you're a self-starter, thoughtful, smart, and hardworking is generally the soft skills.
So what do you mean by self-starter?
So we just hired, the analyst we ended up hiring, his name's Nathan. He started a few days ago.
Okay.
And what struck me about his profile was, instead of having a resume, like a traditional Word doc resume, and cover letter situation, he made a page on Notion. I don't know if you've heard of Notion.
I know what Notion is.
Yeah. So he made a page on Notion which talked about his journey, his skills, linked out to a lot of the work that he's done.
Okay.
Even his like interests, like music and photography and all of that stuff, the books that he's reading, all of that kind of stuff was on this page. And at the end it said, if you want to meet for a virtual coffee, you can schedule some time here and we chat. And at the top it had like, he's looking for BI jobs, recently moved to Toronto.
Wow. So this is like a landing page for like his life.
Exactly.
And work.
And
that's pretty cool.
For me, that was just, and I ended up reaching out to him. So he didn't reach out. I ended up reaching out to him.
Really?
And
how'd you find it?
So after the pandemic situation started, a lot of people in Toronto and other places obviously laid off from their current jobs due to a variety of reasons. They made this website called The Help List.
The Help List.
And it is a database on Airtable of a lot of the people who are looking for jobs due to COVID layoffs, from mostly centered around startups.
Okay.
It's like a really self-selected database because you have to go in and put your information.
Got it.
Which again, for me, is like Selfstarter. You went in and you took some initiative and you put some information on this list. So I just was browsing that for BI analyst type roles. Saw his name, saw the Notion page instead of just a regular LinkedIn link. So in that they have linked to your LinkedIn, and he linked to the Notion. And I was like, already I feel like this could be the guy.
Damn. So you saw him, he had his LinkedIn, he had his Notion link, and that sparked your interest.
Yeah, I was like, a bunch of LinkedIns, one Notion. Go in there.
Do you use Notion specifically?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But more the fact that he had a landing page.
Did it say like, this is my landing page? It's Notion. Okay.
He, instead of putting his LinkedIn profile, he put that.
Okay.
So I saw
a personal website.
Exactly. Okay. Basically a personal website. Equivalent. And I was like, it's smart to use Notion instead of a website. Less work, same result. And that basically was like, okay, he's thinking about this in a more clever way than just the regular status quo. Yeah. And that's sometimes enough.
Wow. So this guy, Nathan, really spent a lot of time building this Notion database, hoping that to impress someone, and it paid off. That's really out of the box strategy in terms of looking for a job. He's creating some value, or creating some, I guess, art, you would say, to put himself out there, make him stand out against other applicants.
Yeah, and it's just separating yourself from the masses. Even so, sometimes people have like really flamboyant resume docs. That can go both ways, because it's like sometimes it just looks unprofessional. You have a Word doc, but it's like heavily colored, and you have your photo.
There's no people already put photos still these days on their resume.
Some people do, and sometimes it looks good. I think it's different for each profession, like what kind of resumes people like looking at. But I think for most jobs, you're going to be, again, with the masses. Yeah, hundreds and thousands of applicants for all these different jobs. Any moment you can stand out from the masses. Like, I would think about it from the perspective of the recruiter. Okay. Think about their day-to-day. Yeah. And then think about all the moments where you can stand out from the masses. And, like, make a pinpoint of those moments and be like, how can I do that in the most effective way? And I'd had another guest was on the show, and he was really emphasizing on the concept of really mastering your storytelling abilities. And, he said, when you have a resume, or you're about to go in a conversation, pick 7, I guess, key skills or key value adds that you really believe in. And for example, you were working on this X project. What was your role there? And then craft a story around that specific experience and make yourself as the star of that story to highlight a specific skill. What do you think about that? Well, I think that's more in the interviewing stage than the LinkedIn reach out stage. I mean, LinkedIn reach out, interviewing stage, Notion stage. This is a moment where you actually put an effort to, have yourself stand out. So this could be, obviously in a conversation, but this could also be on, a page or something like that. Oh, this is one skill, my story. Yeah, I all for it as long as it's not bullshitting. And I used to be the person who used to bullshit a lot on my resume. What are some
key signs of like a bullshitter?
There's a lot, in my opinion.
Okay.
Usually, if you're like a second year university student intern at big corporation, and you have your key points there being increased revenues by 200%, saved the company, and if you say assisted in saving the company $10 million in cost, usually you are not spearheading any of those.
Yeah.
And to me, that is like immaturity.
Okay.
To think that people won't catch on to that.
So
I think.
What do you tell for like a person who's a recent grad, or still in school, have a year left, or those who just graduated during this pandemic? What do you tell to those people? These people are struggling to find a job right now. Or they don't have much work experience. What can they do to add to their story, add to their resume or whatnot?
So I think,
and without bullshitting.
So one, be honest about where you are in your career, because there's no shame in not having 10 years of work experience. You're just at that point in your life. It is what it is. Yeah. So just be honest about it. And then showcase, even without having that experience, if this is where you want to get to a certain place, be an analyst or whatever it is, what steps are you taking? Because what you do have usually in those cases is time. More time than anyone working a full-time job. So how are you using your time in a smart way to get closer to where you want to be? And how do you highlight that in whether it's your resume or interviews or whatever? So if someone came to me and they were like, 0 experience in analytics, I want to be a business intelligence analyst. What I'm doing in the side is think about what everyone else would be doing, and everyone else is like, I'm taking a Coursera course on SQL.
Sure.
I feel like that...
Standard.
That's status quo. So you can't do, I'm taking a Coursera course on SQL. So if you say, I went to my local restaurant that I love, and I have a connection with them because I live in the neighborhood, I asked them for a bunch of their data and analyzed that, gave them some recommendations, TBD on what effect they'll have, but made a system where I can do this for a bunch of restaurants.
Okay.
Help them automate this and this, TBD on how much time it saves them. Or they were really grateful for that and they never thought they'd be able to.
So once again, going back to that self-starter attitude of like, okay, where can I leverage my skills, offer my skills for free just to get some sort of experience and a story, I guess, to talk to like a recruiter or someone who's actually hiring for that specific role.
Yeah.
And have you interviewed people who were in those positions, you say, or like heard of stories of people in those positions who have like 0 experience, but they really, really want to get into that field?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember off the top of my head, but I'm sure I have. And so for even Nathan, for example, I saw like on his Notion, he linked out to this Tableau that he was making, which was a heat map of all the Black-owned restaurants in Toronto. Okay. In light of all the stuff that's been happening recently. And that's amazing because he found some sort of database or went to Google Maps and compiled it in some way. I didn't look at the details of that because at that point we were already going to hire him. But already I was like, he has time. He's using that time to get closer.
He showcased a product, you would say. Yeah.
And obviously it's a lot easier to do this for... The excuses I've heard, it's a lot easier to do this for engineering and design. Where it's like, wrote this code, did this, here's my GitHub, here's the stuff I've been doing on the side. Design, it's like, did this, blah, blah, blah.
It's just like with those projects, there's like a end product that you can tangibly see.
Exactly. But then even for them, I would say, think about what your peers are doing who are applying to the same jobs. They're really doing the same thing. Yeah. So how do you stand out even further from them? So it's not good enough just to be, I also did this in my peer group. I'm doing something different. Okay. So I think that plus being honest comes across really good.
Okay. Wow. So what would you say to people who say, have 5 to 7 years under the belt, who've done something completely different in their careers, but want to make a transition? And what do you also say to people who are, maybe 20 years experience under the belt, and, they don't have a job during a pandemic, but they're looking for a job? What do you say to those people?
So essentially someone who's had a career, years of experience,
so yeah, let's say
want
like
to transition.
Yeah, mid-career transition versus 20, 30 years.
Got it. Mid-year transition, I think it's relatively similar. You think about what, out of the where you want to be. One, I would say, think about, are you okay taking a downward trajectory in terms of the more usual titles and all of that stuff? Are you okay with that for the sake of learning? If you are, then you kind of take the same approach where it's reach out to people, have a conversation, be honest about trying to change my career into this, this, and this. I think these skills are transferable, but these things I'll need to learn. Obviously, since these things I need to learn, I know I need to start more junior to learn these things, but I'm hoping once I learn those things, I'll have a fully formed set of experiences that allow me to grow. Just be honest. Same thing. Reach out to people, be honest. Showcase that even though you don't have experience in that specific field, you're trying to learn where your blind spots are. Very much the same as someone with no experience.
Okay.
And then the 20, 30 years not having a job right now. Again, I think you need to ask yourself the hard question of, is this a situation where you used to be a VP at Pepsi and now you can only do VP roles? Or are you okay kind of joining either a smaller company or taking a less large scope? And how can you provide value in that case? And again, the same thing.
I think you definitely gave a lot of great insights in terms of strategies and standing out during, the pandemic and job hunting. Let's talk a little bit more in terms of, you're thinking about your career, you have a job right now. What are some, say, career philosophy around your own career in terms of managing it do you have that you think you have some interesting insight in?
I would say it's all personal. I think everyone has personal philosophies on their own career. Mine has always been learn, optimize for learning and not for titles or money. Optimize for learning, make sure the learning is something that you enjoy, so you're enjoying the day-to-day of the learning. If you're optimizing for learning and enjoying the day-to-day of the learning, you can basically do unpaid work and feel fulfilled. And the rest of the stuff will fall into place.
Obviously, I think that's a really good approach in itself. However, not everyone I would say is right now privileged to be in a position where they can do unpaid work for a substantial long time if they want to transition or whatnot. What would you say for them, who want to look for a job quick, yet still go into the direction they want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I've been fortunate to not have that situation. So that's why my personal philosophy is clouded by my own personal privilege. But what I've read, what I've heard is you can still do quote unquote low paid or unpaid work where you're learning the things you want to learn. And then depending on what city you're in, usually you can get kind of a 9-to-5 or part-time job at a place where that's not what you want to do, but it's helping you pay the bills.
So I remember we had a conversation earlier, about the idea of negotiating and negotiating salaries, compensation packages, and there are lots of people out there who are applying for jobs and they will get their job during the negotiating phase right now, since it is an employer's market. Beggars can't be choosers type of attitude. How or what would you say to an applicant who are negotiating right now their compensation package? And you read a lot of books, you read a lot of people saying always negotiate. It's very important to negotiate because it's a sign that you are fighting for something that you're believing in. It's a sign that you're competent. You believe in your own self-worth. to an extent. What do you say, or like any advice during the negotiating period?
So again, personal philosophy.
Understand.
Very much just my own opinion. I think for junior level positions, which is all the positions that I've kind of gone into at this stage in my career, I think my philosophy has been be grateful that you're getting an opportunity to do something that you like and that you want to grow in. Provide a lot of value to the company to the point where you know for sure you're providing more value to them than you're getting paid. And the moment you're 100% confident in that, that's the time, if they don't proactively appreciate it, but you're 100% confident in that that's the case, that's a good time to...
So how do you show you're adding value more than what, say, they're paying you for? How do you do your job and, do it out of the way that's above your job description? Like, what do you do? And like, without stepping on the toes of other people?
Well, I think, again, limited to startups, there's always more work to go around than there are people to do it. So if you just do your job description, and if everyone just did their job description, there would probably be like only 50% of the stuff done. There's like a whole other 50% that either no one's doing, no one knows how to do, no one has the time to do, or people are too lazy to do.
Okay.
Take some of that 50%, do it, or take the stuff that's in your job description, improve it. Again, an analytics example is someone would be like, hey, can you create this report for me? Hey, I created this report, also automated it so we never have to create it again.
Okay.
Just like try and think about, okay, I've been asked to do this. Is there an opportunity to go above and beyond? Is that in line with something I want to learn? If the answer to both are yes, there's usually an opportunity to do something that is above your quote unquote job description.
Part of this is, if you're in a great culture or a company with a great culture, you have the freedom to do this, and you're not really stepping on people's toes. You're encouraged to really try to add value and like put in a lot of work. For someone who is applying to startups, what characteristics of a startup do you think are green flags versus red flags?
I would say most startups, if they've made it to a certain place, they have a culture where they're okay with you going above and beyond. In terms of red flags, there's the employee sentiment ranking website. I forgot what it's called. Glassdoor. So I would look at that. Just look at some, like, if there's some major red flags. If you've already had conversations with people at the company, generally you get some sentiment. You can ask a few questions there about what the culture is like. And you should have some sort of an idea. And I would say most startups have this mentality of go above and beyond, and we will not shun you for it. It'll be appreciated.
Wow. So thank you, Rohan. You provide a lot of great strategies and insights in terms of like job hunting during a pandemic, how to stand out amongst your peers, and out of box ideas for pandemic job hunting, and especially in the startup world. So I really appreciate you taking your time to be on this podcast. However, I always give my guests 30 seconds to a minute on the end of the show to talk about whatever they want. So the floor is yours.
Cool. Thanks for having me on. And I think I would just say to all the people looking for jobs right now that I was in that position not too long ago trying to do this whole process. And I probably will be at some point in the future. It seems like a lot of work, and it's probably quite frustrating at times. It really is worth it to find the right job for you. And going through the process, as frustrating as it is, helps build that muscle. It probably helps you build a network, and it helps you build an understanding of all these different types of companies and what they do and how they're different. So it will be useful in the future to go through it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
This is the end of the show. Thank you for tuning into the Pandemic Job Hunt podcast. As always, I would love to get feedback, so don't hesitate to get in touch through my Twitter @AndrewHNBerry or LinkedIn.